I feel the first contraction at 9:47 a.m., right as Jennifer clicks to her opening slide. Perfect timing. I shift in my chair at the conference table, 8 months and 3 weeks pregnant, and catch Jennifer's eye. She gives me that smile, the one I used to think meant friendship. The one I now know means she's already counting her victory. "Thank you all for being here," Jennifer says, her voice smooth and confident. "Today, I'm thrilled to present the Morrison account strategy that will revolutionize our Q4 numbers. My Morrison account strategy, the one I spent 11 months developing, the one that in my first life, she presented exactly like this while I was home on maternity leave, unable to defend myself. But that was before I died at 34 from a stress-induced stroke, before I woke up gasping in my bed 2 years earlier, before I got this impossible second chance. The contraction fades. I have time. Emma," Jennifer continues, gesturing to me with fake warmth, "has been absolutely instrumental in supporting this project, even agreeing to delay her maternity leave to ensure a smooth transition." The executives nod approvingly. Richard Chen, our CEO, actually smiles at me. That's the kind of dedication we value. They have no idea that in my first life, this smooth transition meant Jennifer taking sole credit for 14 months of my work while I was dealing with postpartum complications. They don't know that she got my promotion, my office, my team, all while sending me sympathy cards about how hard new motherhood must be. I smile back at Richard. I just want what's best for the company. Jennifer's smile tightens. Just a fraction. Because here's what she doesn't know. I've been planning this moment for 18 months. Every conversation, every email, every late night where she thought I was being her loyal friend, it was all preparation for this. "Let's dive into the strategy," Jennifer says, advancing her slide. "The core innovation here is the three-tier engagement model. My three-tier engagement model. The one I explained to her over coffee 6 months ago when she said she was struggling with her own projects and just needed some friendly advice. The one I documented meticulously in emails with timestamps, CCing myself at my personal address. Another contraction. Stronger this time. I breathed through it silently. In my first life, I went into labor at home alone. My husband was traveling for work, a trip I'd insisted he take because Jennifer had convinced me the presentation wasn't until next week. By the time I realized she'd lied, I was in the hospital and she was in this very conference room presenting my work to a standing ovation. This time, my husband knows everything. He's waiting 3 floors down in the parking garage, hospital bag already packed. The beauty of this approach," Jennifer continues, clicking to a slide showing my customer segmentation analysis, "is how it anticipates client needs before they even articulate them." I wrote that phrase, verbatim. It's in my strategy document dated 14 months ago, the one Jennifer claimed she'd never seen when HR investigated after my first life's version of me finally worked up the courage to report her, 3 months postpartum and sinking into depression. The investigation went nowhere. Jennifer had been so careful to never leave a paper trail. Except this time, there is a paper trail, because I built one. "Jennifer," I say, my voice cutting through her presentation, "could you explain how you developed the customer segmentation matrix?" She barely pauses. She's good at this. "Of course. I analyzed purchasing patterns across 18 months of data, identifying 3 key demographic clusters." "Which 3 clusters?" A flash of irritation crosses her face. "High-income urban professionals, suburban families, and rural small business owners." "Interesting," I say. "And when did you complete this analysis?" "I've been working on this for over a year, Emma. You know that." "I do know that." Another contraction. I breathe. "I'm just curious about the timeline. Because I remember when you first mentioned this project. It was February 15th, at that coffee shop on Madison. You said you were working on something exciting but couldn't share details yet." Jennifer's smile stays fixed. "That sounds right." "But the customer segmentation matrix, you just said you developed it. That's a significant piece of work. Weeks of analysis, at least." "Yes, and?" "And you asked me about segmentation approaches on March 2nd. I remember because it was my baby shower. You came late and pulled me aside to ask about my Morrison project." The room shifts. Several executives are actually paying attention now instead of checking their phones. Emma, Jennifer's voice has an edge now. I think pregnancy brain might be affecting your memory. I was asking about segmentation in general, not specifically tsane. You asked me if I'd considered psychographic versus demographic clustering for luxury B2B clients. That's very specific. I pull out my phone, the one I've been documenting everything on. In fact, you sent me a follow-up email the next day, March 3rd, 10:42 a.m. Subject line, quick question about our conversation. Would you like me to read it? Jennifer's face pales. This really isn't the appropriate time. You're right, let me let you continue. I set my phone on the table, screen up, email visible. Please, go on. Tell us about the innovative 3-tier engagement model. She stares at me for a moment. In my first life, this is where I would have apologized, shrunk back, let her continue stealing my work because confrontation felt impossible when I was this pregnant, this tired, this convinced that making waves would somehow hurt my baby. But I've already lived through the consequences of silence. Jennifer turns back to her presentation, her hand trembles slightly on the remote. As I was saying, the 3-tier model, the contraction hits like a wave. I gasp despite myself. Emma, Richard leans forward. Are you all right? Fine, I manage. Just Braxton Hicks. Please continue, Jennifer. But everyone's looking at me now, and Jennifer has lost the room. She pushes forward anyway, desperate. The model establishes touch points at the awareness, consideration, and decision phases. That's interesting terminology, Marcus from Legal interjects. He's been my ally since I privately showed him my documentation 3 weeks ago. Those specific phases, awareness, consideration, decision, aren't those from the consumer decision journey framework? That's pretty standard. Jennifer bristles. The application is unique. How so? The way we've mapped specific interventions to each phase, creating a customized approach for high-value clients. Could you elaborate on the customization methodology? Marcus asks. Jennifer's composure cracks. It's all in the presentation. I'd love to hear you explain it, Richard says. Walk us through your thought process. This is the moment she realizes. I can see it dawn in her eyes. She doesn't actually understand the strategy. She memorized my words, copied my slides, but she never did the work. She can't explain the methodology because she doesn't know it. In my first life, no one asked her to elaborate. No one questioned. She delivered the presentation flawlessly because she'd practiced my words 100 times and I wasn't there to complicate things. Jennifer looks at her slides. The methodology is complex. Perhaps we should move through the full presentation first and then… Jennifer, I say quietly, when you asked me to delay my maternity leave, you said you needed help transitioning this project to the team. You said you were struggling with some of the more technical aspects. Do you remember? That's not you offered to delay. I have that conversation recorded. I don't actually, but she doesn't know that. You specifically said the Morrison account was overwhelming you, that you needed my expertise for just a few more weeks. The room is silent. You said you couldn't execute without me, I continue. Those were your exact words. I can't execute this without you, Emma. Another contraction, longer this time. I grip the edge of the table. Are you sure you're okay? Asks Sarah from operations, genuine concern in her voice. I'm fine, I say. But I think we should address something. Jennifer, you've been presenting this as your strategy, but I have documentation showing I developed every element of this approach starting 16 months ago. That's absurd, Jennifer snaps. You helped with research, but the strategy is mine. The customer segmentation matrix I created in January, the 3-tier engagement model I presented to you in February, you said you loved it but weren't sure how to implement it. The touchpoint mapping I spent 6 weeks developing, the ROI projections, the implementation timeline, the risk mitigation framework. I look around the table. I have time-stamped documents for all of it, emails, presentation notes, strategy memos, all predating any work Jennifer claims to have done. Richard's expression hardens. Is this true? Emma is confused, Jennifer says desperately. She did contribute, but she's exaggerating her role. I'm not confused. Another contraction, stronger. And I'm not exaggerating. In fact, I think this is the perfect time to clarify exactly who did what on this project. I pull up my email on the conference room display. The entire thread appears. 16 months of documentation. Every concept, every framework, every analysis, all from me. And Jennifer's responses. This is brilliant. Exactly what I needed. You're saving my life. Emma, Jennifer's voice cracks. Please, you're pregnant, you're emotional. I'm emotional? I laugh and it comes out harder than I intended. You're right, I am emotional. Because in my first life, I stop. They don't need to know about the rebirth. They don't need to know I've already lived this betrayal. Because I trusted you, I say instead. You were my friend. When I told you I was pregnant, you cried happy tears. You threw my baby shower. You held my hand when I was worried about balancing work and motherhood. And the whole time, you were planning to steal my work. That's not true. Jennifer looks around the table desperately. She's lying. She's trying to sabotage me because she's jealous. Jealous? The contraction peaks. I breathe through it. Of what? You've built a career on other people's work. How many other projects, Jennifer? How many other times have you done this? Silence. Then Marcus speaks. I'd like to see Emma's documentation. All of it. As would I, Richard says, his voice ice. Jennifer's face crumbles. She looks at me with something between betrayal and disbelief. You planned this. You set me up. No, so I say. I documented my work. That's not a setup. That's just being professional. Another contraction. What you did, convincing me to delay my maternity leave so you'd have more time to memorize my strategy, that was a setup. I never, you did. You knew I'd go into labor eventually. You were counting on me being absent for today's presentation. You even accidentally told me the wrong meeting date, remember? You texted me yesterday, just confirming the Morrison presentation is next Tuesday, right? You were trying to make sure I wouldn't be here. Jennifer opens her mouth, closes it. The evidence is overwhelming and she knows it. But I'm here, I say softly, despite your best efforts. The contraction doesn't fade this time, it intensifies. I feel wetness and realize with a calm that surprises me, my water just broke. Emma, Sarah stands up. Emma, are you? I'm in labor, I announce. Have been for about 20 minutes. The room erupts. Richard is calling for security. Sarah is calling 911. Marcus is helping me to my feet. And Jennifer just stands there, frozen at the front of the room, watching her career implode in real time. One more thing, I say, pausing at the door. Another contraction hits and I grip Marcus's arm. When it passes, I look at Jennifer. The Morrison account? They called me last week. Direct line. They've heard about my work, my actual work through industry contacts. They want me to lead the engagement personally. I start as their consultant in 6 months after my maternity leave. Full equity stake. Jennifer's face goes white. They never wanted the company, I continue. They wanted me. And when I told them what you did, they pulled the entire account. I smile. That's why I could afford to let you present today. There's no Morrison account anymore. Not for this company. You just spent 20 minutes presenting a strategy for a client we no longer have. Jennifer can barely speak. You sabotaged. I protected my work, I correct. There's a difference. Richard's face is purple. Jennifer, my office, now. But I'm already leaving. Marcus escorts me to the elevator where my husband is waiting, hospital bag in hand. How'd it go? Michael asks, wrapping his arm around me. Perfect, I say as another contraction hits. Absolutely perfect. In my first life, I had my daughter at 2:37 p.m. on a Wednesday, alone except for nurses who pitied me. My husband arrived 3 hours later, apologetic and guilty. Jennifer texted me congratulations, along with a photo of herself shaking Richard's hand, her new promotion announced. I spent 6 months drowning in postpartum depression, convinced I'd ruined my career by having a baby. Jennifer visited once, bringing expensive baby clothes and subtle digs about how hard it must be to be away from the office. She invited me to lunch after my leave ended, where she gently suggested I might be happier in a less demanding role. After all, motherhood changes priorities. I accepted a demotion. I spent 4 years watching Jennifer climb the ladder with my strategies, my ideas, my work. I had a stress-induced stroke at my desk on a Tuesday morning, collapsed in the bathroom, and died before the ambulance arrived. My daughter was 3 years old. This time, I have my daughter at 2:14 p.m. on a Wednesday, with my husband holding my hand and my mother crying happy tears in the corner. She's perfect. 8 pounds, 2 ounces, healthy and screaming and absolutely perfect. I name her Phoenix. The aftermath unfolds exactly as planned. Jennifer is fired within 3 hours of the meeting. The investigation Marcus initiates uncovers 5 other instances of her stealing credit for colleagues' work. 2 other women come forward with similar stories. HR is embarrassed, legal is furious. The company issues a formal apology. Richard visits me in the hospital the next day. "I'm sorry, Ispai," he says, and he actually means it. "We should have caught this sooner." "Yes," I agreed, Amon. "You should have." "The Morrison account is mine," I finish. "I'm starting my own consultancy. Morrison is my anchor client, but I already have 3 others interested, all former contacts who've heard about what Jennifer did." Richard winces. "I don't suppose there's any chance we could convince you to stay?" "No." I had to try. He stands, leaving an envelope on my bedside table. "Your full bonus, plus what would have been Jennifer's, and a settlement agreement. We'd appreciate your discretion." I don't open it until he leaves. It's substantial, enough to fund my consultancy's first year and then some. Michael reads it over my shoulder. "They're scared you'll sue." "They should be," I say. "But I won't. This is enough." He kisses my forehead. "I'm proud of you." I look down at Phoenix, sleeping peacefully in my arms. I just wanted to make sure she grows up seeing her mother stand up for herself. Seeing that women don't have to accept betrayal quietly. "You did that," Michael says. You absolutely did that." 6 weeks later, I'm back in a conference room. But this one is mine. 10 employees, all women, most of them mothers. My consultancy has grown faster than I dreamed possible. The key to the Morrison engagement, I tell my team, is authentic relationship building. Not manipulation, not theft, genuine value creation. They take notes. They ask questions. They respect my expertise because they've chosen to work with me, not because they're stuck with me. My phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. "Can we talk?" I know it's Jennifer without checking. She's tried to reach me 17 times since she was fired. I've ignored all of them. This time I respond, "No." Another text. "I'm sorry, I was desperate. The pressure to perform." I delete it, block the number. She doesn't deserve my forgiveness, and I don't owe her my understanding. "Emma?" One of my consultants, Rachel, hesitates. "I know this is personal, but can I ask how you had the courage to confront Jennifer like that?" "I've been in situations where someone took credit for my work and I just let it happen." I look around the table. Every woman here is nodding. "I got tired of being nice," I say simply. "I got tired of making myself smaller to make other people comfortable. I got tired of sacrificing my needs for people who wouldn't do the same for me." "But going into labor at the meeting?" Rachel shakes her head. "That's such a power move." I laugh. "I didn't plan that part." "Well, not exactly. I knew I was close to labor. I knew the meeting was high stakes. I gambled that if I delayed my maternity leave like she asked, she'd rush the presentation, and I'd have the chance to expose her in front of everyone who mattered." That's brilliant, another consultant says. That's survival, I correct. I learned the hard way that being kind doesn't protect you. Documentation does. Witnesses do. Being willing to burn bridges when necessary does. They absorb this. Some of them look uncomfortable. Good. They should be. Too many women are taught to be accommodating, to smooth things over, to protect their enemies from consequences. Here's what I wish someone had told me earlier, I continue. Your loyalty should be earned, not assumed. Your work is valuable and you should protect it. And if someone betrays you, you don't owe them a quiet exit. That's very different from what we're usually taught, Rachel says. I know, I gather my notes. But look where nice gets us. Look how many talented women sacrifice their careers for people who wouldn't sacrifice lunch for them. Phoenix starts crying from her carrier in the corner. Feeding time. Take 10 minutes, I tell my team. We'll reconvene after. I scoop her up, settle into the nursing chair I had installed in my office. She latches immediately, content and warm. In my first life, I pumped in bathroom stalls. I missed meetings because I couldn't find coverage for childcare. I apologized constantly for being a mother. This time, my daughter comes to work with me. My team knows that feeding breaks are non-negotiable. My clients schedule around my availability, not the other way around. Because I set those boundaries. Because I demanded respect. Because I refused to repeat the mistakes that killed me. Michael texts, "How's your day?" "Perfect," I reply. "Absolutely perfect." 3 months later, Jennifer reaches out again, this time through a former colleague. She's really struggling, Linda tells me over coffee. No one will hire her, she's blacklisted. Good, I say. Linda flinches. That's harsh. Is it? I meet her eyes. She stole my work, she manipulated me during my pregnancy. She tried to sabotage the most vulnerable moment of my life. And you think I should feel sorry for her? I just think she made a mistake, multiple mistakes, systematically, over more than a year. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern. Linda shifts uncomfortably. She said she was under a lot of pressure, that Richard demanded results. So did I interrupt. I was under the same pressure. I just chose to do my own work instead of stealing someone else's. Maybe you could at least hear her out. No. Linda looks at me like I've become someone she doesn't recognize. Maybe I have. Maybe that's the point. Emma, she says carefully, I know she hurt you. But this vendetta, it's not a vendetta. It's consequences. Jennifer made choices. She's living with them. That's not my responsibility. But you're the reason she can't find work? No, I correct. Right? Her actions are the reason she can't find work. I didn't force her to steal. I didn't force her to lie. I just refused to stay silent about it. Linda leaves shortly after. We don't make plans to meet again. I'm okay with that. 6 months postpartum, I'm in a conference room with Morrison's executive team, presenting the final results of our engagement. Revenue up 34%, I conclude. Customer retention up 28%. And most importantly, you now have a sustainable strategy framework that your team can own and iterate on. Applause, genuine appreciation. The CEO, Margaret Morrison herself, stands. Emma, this has been transformative. We'd like to extend our engagement for another year. I'd love that, I say. After the meeting, Margaret pulls me aside. I heard about what happened at your previous company. I tense. I see. Jennifer reached out to me, Margaret continues. Tried to position herself as the real architect of this strategy. Said you'd stolen credit from her and she could deliver better results. My stomach drops. When? Last week? Margaret smiles. I recorded the call, sent it to my legal team just in case she tries this with any of my other vendors. I exhale. Thank you. Thank you, Margaret corrects, for having the courage to expose her. Do you know how many women she's done this to? We've identified 7 others just in our network. 7 careers derailed because she was good at playing victim and stealing credit. I didn't know, I admit. Well, now we're making sure everyone knows. Your story is spreading, Emma. Women are learning to document their work to protect themselves. You've started something important. I think about my first life, how isolated I felt, how I thought I was the only one Jennifer had betrayed, how I died believing I'd failed. I'm glad something good came from it, I say. Margaret squeezes my shoulder. You're doing more than good. You're changing the culture. Phoenix is 8 months old when I get the call. Ms. Chen, an unfamiliar voice. This is Detective Ramirez with the District Attorney's Office. I'm calling about Jennifer Hartwell. My blood runs cold. What about her? She's been charged with fraud, multiple counts. Apparently, after she couldn't find work in corporate consulting, she started a business coaching practice. She's been charging clients for proprietary strategies she claimed to develop. That she stole from others, I finish. Yes, we have 17 complaints so far. Several of her clients are filing civil suits, but we're building a criminal case and your testimony would be valuable. Why? Because you have the best documentation. And because your case established the pattern. Everything else builds from what she did to you. I think about Jennifer, how she looked that day in the conference room, her career crumbling in real time, how I thought that was justice. Apparently, she never learned. I'll testify, I say. The trial is 14 months after Phoenix's birth. I take the stand in a navy suit, my daughter with my mother in the gallery. Jennifer's lawyer tries to paint me as vindictive. Isn't it true that you plan to humiliate Ms. Hartwell? No, I say calmly. I plan to protect my work. The humiliation was a consequence of her actions, not my goal. But you went into labor at that meeting deliberately. I went into labor because that's what happens at 9 months pregnant. I attended the meeting because it was important to my career. You could have stayed home. Why should I have? I look directly at the jury. Jennifer convinced me to delay my maternity leave, telling me she needed help transitioning my project. In reality, she was memorizing my strategy to present as her own. She was counting on me being absent. I chose not to give her that opportunity. That sounds like entrapment. It's called showing up for work, I say, which is apparently more than Jennifer ever did. The jury laughs. The judge gavels them quiet, but I can see some of them nodding. Jennifer's lawyer switches tactics. Ms. Chen, you've built quite a successful business since leaving your corporate position, haven't you? Yes. In fact, you've profited significantly from the publicity around this case. I've profited from my own work, I correct. The work Jennifer tried to steal. The work I'd been doing long before she entered the picture. But you can't deny that your consultancy has benefited from the narrative of being Jennifer's victim. I'm not a victim, I interrupt. I'm a professional who refused to tolerate theft. There's a difference. The trial lasts 3 weeks. Jennifer is convicted on 12 counts of fraud. She's sentenced to 18 months in prison and ordered to pay restitution to all 17 of her business coaching clients. The judge's words stick with me. Ms. Hartwell, you have demonstrated a consistent pattern of deception and exploitation. You have built your career on the talents of others while contributing nothing of your own. This court hopes that your time in prison will provide an opportunity for reflection on the harm you've caused. Jennifer cries. She apologizes. She begs for leniency. The judge denies it. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarm me. How do you feel about the verdict? Relieved, I say honestly, and hopeful that other women will see they don't have to accept being stolen from. Do you forgive Jennifer? I pause. Think about my first life, about dying at 34, my daughter barely old enough to remember me, about the years I spent diminished, believing I was the problem. No, I say, I don't forgive her, and I don't think I should have to. The reporter looks surprised. That's very honest. Women are always expected to forgive, I say. To be gracious, to move on quietly. But why? Why should I forgive someone who tried to destroy me? Who would have succeeded if I hadn't fought back? So this is about revenge? No, I correct. This is about justice, and about making sure she can't do this to anyone else. Phoenix is 2 years old when I'm invited to speak at a women's leadership conference. Tell us about the moment you decided to fight back, the moderator asks. I think about my first life, about the moment I died, about waking up 2 years earlier with a second chance. I decided to fight back when I realized silence was killing me, I say. Literally, I pause, choosing my words carefully. In my darkest moment, I understood that protecting my career wasn't selfish. It was survival. What advice would you give to women facing similar situations? Document everything, I say immediately. Every contribution, every conversation, every instance of someone taking credit for your work. Create a paper trail, because when it comes time to defend yourself, evidence matters more than truth. That's cynical, the moderator observes. That's realistic, I counter. In a perfect world, our word would be enough. But we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world where women like Jennifer Hartwell can build entire careers on stolen work, where women like me have to choose between being nice and being protected. And you chose protection. I chose survival, and I chose to make it impossible for her to do this to anyone else. The audience applauds. Afterward, dozens of women approach me with their own stories. I didn't document anything. I was too scared to speak up. I thought I was overreacting. I listen to all of them. I validate every fear, and I tell them what I wish someone had told me in my first life. You're not overreacting. Your work matters. Your career matters, and you don't owe your betrayers forgiveness. Phoenix is 3 when I open my second office. 25 employees now, all women, many of them mothers. We're the fastest growing consultancy in the region. Jennifer is released from prison after serving 14 months. She tries to contact me one final time. The letter arrives at my office. My assistant brings it to me hesitantly. Should I throw this away? I open it, read it. Jennifer's handwriting is shaky. Emma, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I can never make up for what I did. But I want you to know that I've had time to think about the person I was. The person who thought success meant taking from others instead of building something real. I was wrong. I hurt you. I hurt so many people. And I'm sorry. I'm trying to be better. I'm working a retail job now. I'm seeing a therapist. I'm trying to understand why I made those choices. I don't expect you to respond. I just wanted you to know that you were right to expose me. You saved others from what you went through, and I'm grateful for that, even though I'm paying the price. I hope you and your daughter are well. Jennifer. I read it twice, then I fold it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. Are you going to respond? My assistant asks. No, I say, but I'm going to keep it. Why? To remember, I say simply. To remember that consequences are real, that actions have weight, that justice isn't always pretty, but it matters. Phoenix is 5 when she asks me about work for the first time. Mommy, why do you always write down what people say? We're in my home office. I'm documenting a client meeting while she colors at my feet. Because people don't always remember things the same way, I tell her. And when I write it down, there's no confusion later. Is that because someone was mean to you? I pause. She's too young to understand the full story, but maybe not too young to learn the lesson. Yes, I say, someone I trusted took something that belonged to me. And because I wrote everything down, I was able to prove it was mine. Did she get in trouble? Yes. Good, Phoenix says firmly. Mom, dealing is wrong. I smile. Yes, it is. Did you forgive her? The question catches me off guard. No, baby, I didn't. Why not? Because I choose my words carefully. Because sometimes people do things that hurt us very badly, and we don't have to forgive them just because time passes. We can remember what they did and choose to protect ourselves instead. Phoenix thinks about this. But don't you feel sad? Sometimes, I admit. But mostly I feel strong because I stood up for myself and I made sure she couldn't hurt anyone else the way she hurt me. I want to be strong like you, Phoenix says. My eyes water. You will be, baby. You absolutely will be. Phoenix is 7 when I get the news that Jennifer has died. Overdose. Accidental, according to the police report. She'd been struggling with depression and substance abuse since her release from prison. I feel nothing. Not satisfaction, not grief, just a distant, hollow acknowledgement that someone who tried to destroy me is gone. Michael thinks I should feel guilty. She clearly never recovered from what happened. What I did to her, you mean? I ask. I didn't say that. But that's what you're implying, that I'm somehow responsible for her death because I refused to let her steal from me with impunity. I just think maybe if you'd been willing to forgive her, she'd still be alive and probably still hurting people, I finish. Jennifer didn't die because I exposed her. She died because she built her entire identity on theft and manipulation, and when that was taken away, she had nothing left. That's not my fault. You seem very cold about this. I'm not cold. I'm realistic. Jennifer made choices. She stole from me and at least 16 other people that we know of. She destroyed careers, tanked projects, and damaged lives. When she got caught, instead of rebuilding herself honestly, she started a coaching business and did the same thing all over again. She went to prison and still didn't change. What part of that am I supposed to feel guilty about? Michael is silent. I didn't make Jennifer who she was, I continue. I just refused to be her victim. If that makes me cold, I can live with that. He doesn't bring it up again, but I think about it. Late at night, when Phoenix is asleep and the house is quiet, I wonder if I could have done something different. Then I remember my first life. How I died at 34, exhausted and broken. How Jennifer attended my funeral with her husband, wearing black and crying performatively while she'd just been promoted to VP using my strategies. No, I wouldn't change anything. Jennifer's death isn't my burden to carry. Phoenix is 10 when she asks me to tell her the whole story. We're having dinner, just the two of us. Michael is traveling for work. She's old enough now to understand complexity. Tell me about the woman who stole from you, she says. I've been preparing for this conversation for years. I take a breath. Her name was Jennifer, I begin. And I thought she was my friend. I tell her everything. The betrayal, the documentation, the meeting, going into labor as Jennifer's career imploded. Phoenix listens, her eyes wide. You knew she was going to steal from you? I suspected, I say carefully. I'd seen signs, little things. The way she always needed help, but never contributed her own ideas. The way she'd ask detailed questions about my work, but never share her own. I knew I was at risk. So you set a trap. I protected myself, I corrected. There's a difference. But you let her think you were friends. I was her friend, right up until I realized she wasn't mine. Phoenix processes this. Was it hard, pretending? Documenting, I correct. I wasn't pretending to be her friend. I was genuinely trying to help her while also protecting my work. When I realized she was planning to betray me, I made sure I had evidence. That's not a trap. That's being smart. Did you feel bad when she got fired? I think about this. No, I say honestly, I felt relieved. And I felt powerful because for the first time, I'd stood up for myself instead of letting someone take advantage of me. What happened to her? She went to prison for fraud. And then, years later, she died. Phoenix's face falls. She died? Yes. Because of what you did? No, I say firmly. Because of what she did. Jennifer made choices. She chose to steal, to lie, to hurt people. When those choices caught up with her, she couldn't handle the consequences. That's not my responsibility. But don't you feel bad? Sometimes, I admit. But mostly I feel grateful that I survived. That I was strong enough to fight back, that I built a life and a business where I don't have to tolerate being stolen from. Phoenix nods slowly. I think I understand. Good, I say. Because here's what I want you to learn from this. Your work matters, your boundaries matter, and you never, ever have to sacrifice yourself to make other people comfortable. What if people think I'm mean? Then they think you're mean, I say. But you'll be protected. You'll be safe. And you'll know that you stood up for yourself. Phoenix is 15 when she comes to me with her own betrayal story. My friend Emma copied my essay, she says, furious and tearful. She turned in almost the same paper. The teacher thinks I'm the one who copied. My blood runs cold. What did you do? I showed her my drafts, the ones with timestamps. I have 3 different versions, all saved with dates. Emma only has the final paper. I could cry with pride. And the teacher believed me. Emma got a 0. But now everyone thinks I'm a snitch. Are you okay with that? Phoenix meets my eyes. Yes, because I did the work, and she tried to steal it. Why should I protect her? You shouldn't, I say firmly. You did exactly right. But people are mad at me. People are always mad at women who stand up for themselves, I interrupt. That doesn't mean we should stop doing it. Phoenix nods. I'm glad I didn't let her get away with it. Me too, baby, me too. Phoenix is 18 when she asks me if I have any regrets. We're packing for college. She's been accepted to Stanford's business school. She wants to start her own company someday. About Jennifer? I ask. About all of it, the confrontation, the trial, everything. I think about my first life. About dying young. About never seeing Phoenix grow into this brilliant, fierce woman. No, I say. I don't have any regrets. I survived. I built something real. And I taught you that women don't have to accept being stolen from. But she died. She died because she never learned to build anything of her own. That's tragic, Phoenix, but it's not my fault. I know, she says. I wonder sometimes if there was another way. There probably was, I admit. But the other way would have required me to sacrifice myself, to stay silent, to let her steal from me and hope karma would catch up with her eventually. And I tried that once. It killed me. Phoenix looks startled. What do you mean? I've never told her about the rebirth. I never planned to, but she's an adult now. She deserves the truth. In another life, I say carefully, I didn't fight back. I stayed silent. I let Jennifer take my work, my promotion, my career, and the stress destroyed me. I died at 34. Mom, but I got a second chance, I continue. I got to come back and do things differently, and this time I chose survival. I chose strength. I chose to make sure my daughter grew up seeing her mother stand up for herself. Phoenix hugs me fiercely. I'm so glad you did. Me too, baby. Me too. Phoenix is 25 when she starts her own company. I'm her first investor. I want to build something that empowers women, she tells me. Something that helps them document their work, protect their ideas, and fight back when someone tries to steal from them. That's perfect, I say. I'm calling it Phoenix, she says. After myself, and after what you did. Rising from the ashes. I cry. Actual tears of pride and joy. Mom, Phoenix says, I know you think you were just protecting yourself. But you did more than that. You showed me, you showed so many women, that we don't have to accept betrayal quietly. that we can demand justice, that we can survive and thrive. I just did what I had to do, I say. No, Phoenix corrects. You did what so many women are too scared to do, and because of that, I'm not scared. None of us are. I'm 65 when I retire. Phoenix's company is valued at $2 billion. She has 3 children of her own, all raised with the same lessons I taught her. Michael and I are having coffee on our porch when a young woman approaches. Excuse me, she says nervously. Are you Emma Chen? Yes. I just wanted to thank you. Your story, what you did to Jennifer Hartwell, it saved my career. I was in a similar situation, and because I'd read about you, I documented everything. When my colleague tried to steal my work, I had evidence. I exposed her before she could destroy me. She's crying now. You saved my life, and I know there are hundreds of women like me, women who didn't have to suffer because you had the courage to fight back. After she leaves, Michael squeezes my hand. No regrets? I think about my first life, about Jennifer, about the choice to expose her, to testify, to refuse forgiveness. No regrets, ma'am, I confirm. Because here's the truth. Jennifer Hartwell tried to destroy me. In my first life, she succeeded. In this life, I destroyed her first. And I'd do it again. Every single time, the end.